Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome to episode 73 of the How to Survive podcast. This week we're talking about Event Horizon. It's a film that came out in 1997, which is now officially 20 years ago. So you've had 20 years to see Event Horizon. If you haven't seen Event Horizon, it's available on Netflix in the UK. Watch it and email your thoughts to us, howtosurviveshow@gmail.com, or get in touch on Twitter @howtosurvivepod. Yes, 20 years, 2 decades, we're all old, everyone's going to die. Enjoy the show.
At 0300 this morning, TDRS picked up an automated navigation beacon broadcasting at 2-minute intervals in Neptune orbit.
This is incredible. It's the Event Horizon. She's come back.
The Event Horizon was the culmination of a secret government project to create a spacecraft capable of faster-than-light flight. The ship doesn't really go faster than light. What it does is it creates a dimensional gateway that allows it to jump instantaneously from one point of the universe to another light years away.
Where's she been for the last 7 years, Doctor?
That's what we're here to find out.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of the How to Survive podcast, and Happy New Year! My name's Chris, and joining me as ever is Joe.
Happy New Year to you. How are you?
I'm very well. We're going to celebrate this festive period.
Yeah, did you have a good Christmas and New Year?
Yeah, it was very good, very good.
What did you get up to?
Oh, not a lot, you know, a bit relaxing, seeing friends and family.
Yeah.
All the festive...
Classic Chris Morris, that is.
Exactly,
Friends
yeah.
and family.
Yeah, that's what they call me, friends and family Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna talk about one of the most festive films I think I've ever seen.
Yes.
It is, of course, 1997's Event Horizon.
Yeah.
A film with literally a black hole at its heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like you.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I do have that. It's I was hoping you wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah.
But now it is out in the open. I am having surgery in the next few months.
Yeah. Good luck to them. Well, from one intrepid adventure to another, if you haven't seen Event Horizon, then go away and watch it. It's available on UK Netflix to stream, and it is a cult classic, I would say.
It's become that, hasn't it?
Yes. It's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, and if you've seen any of his other films, then you'll know roughly what to expect.
Yeah. Not Paul T. Anderson, importantly.
No, Paul Thomas Anderson, not involved.
No, I tuned in expecting, other good films.
Yeah.
Did not get that.
No. You got one of the best films we've ever covered, Joe, Event Horizon. So let's recap.
It's the best one of the year so far.
Yeah, it is, yeah. A classic, and starting as we mean to go on.
Yeah.
Event Horizon, let's talk about the plot. 7 years after its disappearance, Joe, an experimental spaceship known as the Event Horizon reappears in orbit around Neptune. The crew of the Lewis and Clark, which is another spaceship, are sent to investigate its distress signal, along with Event Horizon's designer, Dr. Weir. Dr. Weir explains to the crew that the ship was designed to travel at faster than light speed through the use of a gravity drive, which opens a temporary black hole for the ship to traverse. And he uses exactly the same method of demonstration as they use in Interstellar. Yeah. Which just goes to show you that Christopher Nolan is a hack.
He owes everything to the 1997 movie Event Horizon.
Yeah, and Paul W.S. Anderson. The crew of the Lewis and Clark decrypt the stricken Event Horizon's distress call, which appears to be in Latin, and one crew member translates it as Liberate Me, which means save me. The crew board the stricken Event Horizon and find no trace of the crew. Justin, the youngest member of the crew, finds the gravity drive, which then activates and produces a portal, damaging the Lewis and Clark. Justin is briefly dragged into the portal and, upon his rescue, is rendered catatonic by what he saw on the other side. The crew begin to experience hallucinations of their fears and regrets. They soon discover a video log of the Event Horizon crew who are mutilating and cannibalizing each other. The captain appears on screen with his eyes gouged out, and the Latin phrase heard earlier is revealed in full to mean save yourself from hell, which is quite the error in translation. The crew deduce that the ship opened a portal to somewhere outside of the known universe and that the event horizon has itself become sentient. Justin attempts suicide rather than be dragged back through the portal, but is rescued, albeit now in a comatose state. Dr. Weir, meanwhile, gouges out his own eyes.
Yeah. He doesn't need them anymore.
No.
Not for where he's going.
No, we won't need eyes to see, is what he says. Captain Miller decides to destroy the event horizon. Weir, now possessed by the evil presence, uses an explosive device to destroy the Lewis and Clark. The explosion kills Smith and blasts Cooper off into space. Smith and Cooper, by the way, are more members of the crew. Peters is lured to her death by a hallucination of her son. Weir kills DJ by vivisecting him and corners Stark on the bridge. Miller confronts Weir, who overpowers him and then initiates a 10-minute countdown, after which the event horizon will return to the other dimension. But Cooper makes a dramatic return, distracting Weir and causing him to shoot out the window of the vessel, and Weir is sucked out into space. Miller returns to the event horizon to manually arm the onboard explosives, but is trapped in the portal room by the demonic presence, who eventually takes the form of Weir. After a protracted fight with some very 90s sound effects and production values, Miller succeeds in destroying the event horizon, the explosion from which propels the lifeboat containing Cooper, Stark and Justin to safety. Months later, the crew are finally rescued, but Stark continues to be plagued by visions of Dr. Weir.
Yes.
And that is Event Horizon. 1997, Paul W.S. Anderson cult space horror movie. One of the greatest films of all time, Joe. I'm sure you'd agree.
Well, I think a lot of the time when we're talking about sci-fi, what we're really talking about is Event Horizon.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, it's all right, isn't it?
Well, it's not bad, but it's also quite bad.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Do you want to go into more detail?
Well, it's the first half an hour, maybe 45 minutes is I like where this is going, right? Yeah, there's some pretty terrible special effects.
Yeah, it's sort of, I guess, just pre-Matrix sort of special effects boom, isn't it?
Yeah. They were obviously testing out what they could, and it looks like a Windows 98 video game.
It's like screensaver.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But that, I mean, even watching it with if you said watch it with 1997 eyes, I think it'd still be pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, let that pass. It loses its way basically as soon as the hallucinations start happening. There's a few good ones, and then when it becomes apparent that Weir is being controlled by the
whatever it is, the presence.
Force. Yeah. That's when it kind of goes downhill for me.
Okay. All right. Well, I actually think that there's a lot of enjoyment to be had from the sort of hallucination parts. I don't think they're bad. I think that's maybe the strongest point of the film. It does, the filmmakers have been quite open with their intention, which was to make The Shining in space.
Yes.
And I think those moments are the closest it comes. I
mean, you mentioned The Shining in space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's also Solaris in space.
Mm-hmm.
2001: A Space Odyssey in space.
Yeah.
Alien in space.
Yeah.
Hellraiser in space.
Yeah.
The Haunting in space.
Yeah.
Interstellar in space.
Right.
Poltergeist.
Well, it's copying a film that was made 15 years later.
Poltergeist in space.
Right.
Insidious in space.
Okay.
House on Haunted Hill in space.
Yeah.
The Amityville Horror in space. All of these things.
So what you're saying is that it's a horror movie in space?
Specifically, those particular horror movies.
Right.
I mean, so there's nothing very original about the idea of something from hell taking over. It's a haunted house movie in space.
It's not as clearly a religious hell in the way that, say, The Exorcist is.
I think it is probably because there's a lot there that suggests it is. Like the fact they're speaking Latin.
Yeah.
There's crucifixes all over the ship. at all times.
Yeah, the actual layout of the ship is basically a crucifix.
Yeah.
As is the window of the bridge.
Yeah.
But I think it's more like, I mean, we see sort of like video logs, they're called, of what happened to the Event Horizon's crew, and they're like, I mean, if you go on YouTube, you can actually find those scenes slowed down, and it's pretty grotesque because the way they're shown in the film is like hallucinatory sort of flashing images and all this sort of thing. But you can actually see what's going on if it's slowed down, like it is there, and it's pretty horrific. And it's like they describe it, the filmmakers describe it as like more of a chaos dimension, as opposed to, here is hell.
Christian hell.
Yeah, exactly. Dante's Inferno or whatever. It's more just like, I don't know, maybe it drives people mad or something. But like the idea of all these people suddenly driven to cannibalism and, increasingly elaborate and horrific violence.
Yes.
Is a disturbing one, I think. And I know you were comparing it to all those other films, but I think the combination of that with like the relatively hard sci-fi elements of we've created a black hole to do faster than light travel and all that sort of thing, I think that's an angle from which these films rarely, come along.
Yeah. I see what you mean, but
I take your point in that there's elements that are taken clearly from other movies and other tropes and stuff.
It's kind of like they're gone, okay, let's say we travel through a black hole, something comes back with us. Yeah. Now let's watch every horror movie ever made.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's very tropey in that respect.
What other than the black hole thing, what's original about it? Bearing in mind that's not even that original, because it was also in Contact, which came out a month before this.
Oh yeah, so it copied the film that was made a month before it.
Yeah, it was a 28-day production actually.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's like an interesting blend. Like, how many good sci-fi horror movies are there generally, and that aren't about an alien or a monster that's basically an alien?
What's this? Is this not an alien or a monster? Do you think?
No, I don't think so. It's more of like a diffuse psychological horror.
Okay.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's. I like the film. I think it's a good film.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about because there's clearly a sort of division between the first 2/3 and the last third.
Yes.
And part of that is, I think, owed to a difficult production cycle.
Yeah. But it's a classic case of the studio showing it to like a focus group.
Yeah.
And then changing, like,
shitting
parts.
the bed.
Yeah. But like,
yeah.
And that's always something that bothers me in movies, right? Because I hear about it a lot. I've just read Mark Kermode's book Hatchet Job,
right?
And he says like basically you should leave it to the director to make the film because critics don't know anything about it, and the audience certainly doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And he gives the example of like Fatal Attraction,
right?
Where the original ending of that was that the Bunny Boiler character,
yes,
she killed herself with a knife that had the man's fingerprints on it,
right,
framing him for the murder, which is a bleak ending.
Yes.
But more operatic, which is kind of the tone of the film.
Yeah.
But the focus group didn't like it. So they changed it. And
where she leaps out of the bathtub and he shoots her in the back. Yeah.
I'd like to think, Chris, if focus groups had been involved in, say, the production of, I don't know, say, Planet of the Apes. Yeah. The famous ending of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
What happens?
You blew it up.
Yeah, it was Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
He sees the Statue of Liberty, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. Now, what would happen if a focus group put their hands on that is the statue would crack, revealing that it was actually a monkey face underneath.
Right.
And it was all a facade. And it wasn't Earth after all. And he can go back.
Yeah. I mean, that is basically what happens in the Tim Burton 2002 remake of Planet of the Apes.
Yes, basically. It is. Focus group are organised, probably.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Sixth Sense, Chris.
Yeah.
If focus group got their hands on that.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Willis would, spoilers for Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
He'd step back, put his hands on the wound at the back of his head and go, I'm dead. And then they'd call an ambulance and he'd be taken to the hospital and resuscitated.
Right.
Yeah. That's probably what happened.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. I think the original ending for this was much sort of straightforward horror.
Yeah.
Whereas the third act becomes a bit more like bizarre action. Like in particular, basically the fight between Captain Miller and Dr. Weir, where it's like 1990s sound effects for like punches. Yeah, those sorts of things. So, yeah, I think originally it was a bit more straightforward horror, and Captain Miller is confronted by his particular hallucination, which is like the burning image of the crew member that he left behind, which he talks about earlier in the film.
So the thing is, it's meant to be the horror of each individual person, right?
Yes.
They're living out their own private hell, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
One of them sees their son, and his legs have been broken and they're rotting, and he's like calling out for help and stuff, which is obviously very nasty.
Yeah.
And obviously Miller's, like you said, is like he's haunted by the memory of this man he left to burn to death.
Yes.
And it makes sense that he would then have to fight that man.
Yeah.
Or be confronted by him. But obviously this focus group wanted it to be Weir who was involved in the finale.
Yeah.
Even though he's not really the villain of the piece. He gets just
he's
driven
like sort
mad.
of a tragic character more than anything, isn't he? I mean, on the one hand, it's he does become like the most obvious on-screen villain, but then on the other hand, he is compelled to pull out his own eyes by a vision of his wife who killed herself.
Yeah.
So you have to feel a little bit for him. I think the crew are quite good, and you were talking about one of the obvious references that the film is making, and that's to Alien.
Yes.
But I think there is a good comparison with Alien, and I think Event Horizon does stand up in relation to it. Perhaps not to the same extent, but I think the characters are interesting, and I think it captures the same sort of bored, careerist space. What are they described as in Alien? It's like truck drivers in space.
Yeah, something
It's
like that,
basically the same here.
Yeah.
They're annoyed that their holiday has been cut short to go on this mission. None of them have any sort of like scientific curiosity when it comes to the other ship. They're very focused on just getting the job done and going home. I think that's quite refreshing. You know, like you watch something like Prometheus, and they're all like flowery scientist types, whereas this is literally just like, I'm an engineer, I'm going to fix the ship, but I just want to go home.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the stronger elements of the film. I think all the characters are relatively well drawn, and you learn, a fair amount about each of them through what, if you see their hallucinations. For example, the woman who sees her son with like rotting sores on his legs, or there's the doctor character who's played by Jason Isaacs, I think. Yeah. Who gets carved up.
Yeah, so who did that?
That was by Dr. Weir.
Right. Okay. Acting on behalf of the...
Yes, but that is... He sees there's like a sort of oblique shot of him early on in one of the flashes, and it's him on a surgical table, which is eventually what happens to him. And in the original version of the film, it was a bit more
gruesome.
Yeah. And he got like sort of strung up by his guts, and it's pretty horrible. But yeah, I think that even though they might not be Shakespearean in their character quality, I think they are all interesting, compelling characters, and they are the reason the film works.
Yeah, it's somewhat like Alien as well, in the sense that you could easily just interchange them in terms of gender.
Yeah. And race,
Yeah.
One interesting point of trivia is that on the space suits, they, for example, Captain Miller, he's American, and his American flag has 55 stars on it. Dr. Weir has an Australian flag which has the Aboriginal flag instead of the United Kingdom flag.
Yeah.
And the English members of the crew have a European Union flag with 22 stars on.
Yeah, that's very, very fitting, isn't it? That's a correct...
Must be an alternate timeline.
Yeah, accurate vision of the future. To be fair, I had a good laugh at the beginning. They had the text preamble where it's like, the year is 2015.
Yeah.
Men have colonized Mars.
Yeah. I must have missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we know, Joe, about the demonic presence, force, evil, whatever it is, black hole entity thing that they face in Event Horizon?
Well, the fact that you don't really know what it is says everything.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be like a sort of demonic force in the sort of traditional mythological, theological usage of the word.
I'm personally quite happy to go with it being hell.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it's either something. It is either hell in the traditional sense, or something that would evoke hell. Like the original captain of the Event Horizon says, "Save yourself from hell." So he could be meaning that literally, or he could be meaning being forced to pull out your own eyes.
Yeah,
is not good.
I would say I think that the level of religious symbology means that it almost certainly is hell.
Do you think?
I think it's layered on too thick for it not to be.
Okay, I think it's a fair comment. Yeah, I guess there's just not that much of the in the way of theological discussion in the film.
But do you think has that been edited out? Was it perhaps there before?
Well, maybe, but I haven't seen the original cut.
No.
In order to judge that, and it seems it's obviously able to conjure hallucinatory visions. But do these take physical form? Like, you know, in the fight scene between Miller and Weir, he's being thrown around the room, kicked about and all that sort of thing. So is it actually taking a sort of corporeal form, or is it just it's all in his head?
Well, that's the thing. It would have made more sense once again if it was just a
hallucination.
Yes.
Maybe that's the direction they went originally.
I think that's probably the case. And the squeamish audience were like, no, I want a heavy hitting punch noise.
Yeah. There's the corridor leading from the main bulk of the ship into the sort of portal room.
Yeah.
And there's loads of spinning sort of cogs around a walkway.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where Lawrence Fishburne's character has to like run across the walkway to dive away from the fire.
Yeah.
And apparently they had to shoot that in like 6 takes because of the spinning cog things made him so dizzy he couldn't run in a straight line. And neither could they film in there for very long because the cameramen would like just
get
fall
sick.
over.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I also I watched a bit of a documentary on how they made Event Horizon, and in the original script there was no gravity on board the Event Horizon, and because of budgetary constraints they went, activating magnetic boots. And they were like, that's fucking saved us £20 million. Yeah. But in the portal room, that's where the hell or whatever it is seems to come about, and it's like seems to create a sort of wormhole, black hole link to another dimension. Is it like hell dimension? Their dimension? How are we defining it?
Hell dimension's fun.
Yeah. Where sort of the horrific torture, violence, etc. apparently happens. So that is all crucial information, Joe, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to talking about how we would survive. So do you have any suggestions for the crew of the ill-fated Lewis and Clark?
Yeah. Well, this goes back to before the movie really starts properly.
Okay.
Presumably Dr. Weir heard news that the Event Horizon had reappeared.
Yes.
And the conversation would have gone something like this. Dr. Weir, and he'd say, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know the Event Horizon? And he'd say, yeah. That has shown up again. And he'd say, that's been 7 years since that disappeared.
Yeah.
No one would have survived in that time. And I say, yeah. And that's that. That would have been the conversation.
Yeah, but they're not just there to rescue the crew, are they? It's like an investigation.
One person's going.
Is it not to get the technology back as well?
That's the thing. It's not that well explained. Because up to like an hour and a half in, I thought he was going there to save his wife.
Right. Okay. Who he sees sort of visions of throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she's killed herself a long time prior to the events of the film. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's more. I think it's more of an investigative thing. Personally,
I find out what went wrong.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because
that's such an expensive little experiment.
But it's like but it's a sunk cost, isn't it? Already, they've spent billions on developing this ship.
That's what a sunk cost means.
It's like the first ship to ever traverse through a black hole.
And look what happened.
Right, and it disappeared and then comes back from 7 years later. Do you think the scientists who built it are just going to go, oh, that's back. Okay. Let's just leave that there. I don't want to know what happened in the 7 years.
Yeah, but you said the scientists. There's only one on the ship.
Yeah. But he designed it. I mean, like...
Yeah, but like...
Well, I mean, like, more to the point, why have the Event Horizon make this jump through a wormhole unaccompanied? Like, why not have, like, a witness scientific team?
Right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, surely, like, if you set up an experiment, you don't just, like, let it happen on its own.
If I said to you, I'm gonna disappear through this wall, it's probably worth having someone on the other side to make sure I get there.
Well, yeah, and also if I'd spent like 10 years designing the disappear through a wall like
machine
technology.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy if you just went, right, I'm going to try this out. But I'm going to try it out down the corridor, through 2 double doors in a locked room, and then I'll wait 7 years before anyone knows whether or not it worked.
I always think with these films, right? Where do they get that much like raw materials to build these spaceships?
Yeah. Well, Interstellar, of course, famously, they use up like all of the Earth's last resources to make the spaceship that can go through the black hole.
Look where it gets them.
Yeah.
Stuck in a bloody bookcase.
Yeah. But yeah, I see your point, but I think you're sort of willfully disregarding the curiosity of scientists.
The curiosity of one scientist?
Yeah.
How's he paying for this?
He's not... I presume he's funded.
By whom?
Maybe it's just that this is such... Like, these sorts of experiments in the world of Event Horizon are just so regular. There's such a regular occurrence that it's not even worth sending more than one person to it. Like, we think that it's like the most dramatic and like, you know, knowledge broadening event in human history, like when watching this film, but actually it's just like
a day at the park.
Yeah. Like there's 500 Event Horizon type events going on every single day. And that's why they can only afford to send one person.
And they're incredibly inexpensive. Space flight is now like just getting a taxi or something.
Yeah, because because Jessica Chastain's worked out on a whiteboard the formula for not gravity.
Yep. So you're actually going with the theory now that Interstellar was made before Event Horizon?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it's a prequel. Interstellar is a prequel to the Event Horizon.
Yeah. All right. Well, how would you survive?
Well, there's a moment in the film where DJ, I believe it is, translates the Latin message he hears in the Event Horizon's distress call. And he translates it as Liberate me.
Help me, save me.
Yeah, right? save me, yeah. Then about 40 minutes of film time later, he goes, I misheard that, and actually it's Liberate tutte me ex infernis, which means save yourself from hell.
Right.
Now, they're quite different, aren't they? They're quite opposing instructions.
Let me hear them again.
So if I went through a black hole and then you got a text from me saying, save me,
right,
what would you do? You know, like if you were a scientist.
I'd try ringing you.
Yeah.
Make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Failing that, I'd text back, Facebook you, whatever.
Yeah.
If I thought, if I was aware that it was a risk of some danger.
Yeah.
If you mentioned like you were about to.
Yeah. No, all I said is save me.
So I don't know what's happening.
Yeah. So I've gone into the black hole and then I've sent you a text saying save me.
Okay. Right. Yeah, I'd say emergency services probably.
Yeah. And you'd send a search party or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. If I went into a black hole and all you heard from me was save yourself from hell, would you take exactly the same actions?
You text me that sort of stuff all day.
I do, yeah. Well, I just I'm worried about your soul. No, but it seems to me that the two sort of directions of action are quite different, aren't they?
Yes.
And do you think it would probably have been worth double checking his translation?
Yeah.
Before they embarked onto the ship, jumped through a portal.
I'm not convinced Liberate me even means save me. I think it's liberate me, surely.
Well, yeah, but liberate probably
me.
Is a Latin word
free
for save.
Let's check a Latin translator. Some translation music, please. Liberate me, Chris.
Yeah.
Actually means payment me.
Right. Now, do you trust Google Translate more than you trust a screenwriter
Yeah.
to do his research?
So Paul Anderson, Chris, doesn't know his Latin.
Do you
That's
not think
clear.
they could have decoded the message first? Like,
Well,
it's all a scrambled thing, and they're
they
like,
put
oh,
it-
we'll run it through some filters.
What does that mean? We'll put it through some filters.
I don't know. It's just future speak, isn't it? We'll
It's
just-
like enhance the quality.
exactly in
Yeah.
CSI or whatever. It's like in Collateral when the security camera from across the parking lot somehow has audio and also goes like, it's Vincent. Like in about like 3 stages of,
Across a main road.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like maybe it's like that, you know. But if you're going to do that sort of like preparatory work, maybe it would have been an idea to do that before you set foot on the ship,
Yeah, I think so.
just to be sure. Because you know, what if you decoded it or put it through the filters and it was like, oh, don't get on the ship because it's like a portal to hell. Please just blow us up from distance.
Yeah.
And Dr. Will will probably try and stop you, but ignore him.
Is he already under the spell?
He's under it from quite early on, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because there's the scene where Justin is trying to get back, or they're trying to get Justin back in through the airlock, and he's just like watching with a sort of lack of affect, isn't he?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
but then he's also dreaming about his wife.
Yeah, but then is that just he's generally
dreaming,
dreaming?
It's quite funny. Like he wakes up and he's like surrounded by photos of her.
Yeah.
He's taken with him on his trip, and he like, takes one off the wall and says to it, "I miss you," as if that's not obvious.
Yeah. You're just making it clear for those in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? Have you got any further tips?
Say, Chris, you're exploring, right? I know you hate the idea of going caving, right?
Yeah.
But say, for argument's sake, you went caving,
Hmm.
and you find a little room in there,
Yeah.
and it's nothing like you've ever seen before. There's a machine there or something,
Yeah.
and the machine suddenly stops moving, and something that I've already told you is going to be a black hole
Yeah.
is there, and it's obviously a black hole.
Yeah.
Would you put your hand in it?
Well, he's a couple of things. He's an engineer, so he's naturally curious. Secondly, how do you know that it's not the influence of whatever presence it is that's like drawing him in already?
He does seem to have his wits about him most of the time, and even after he does regain them at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how it works. We don't know enough about it. That's the problem.
No, it's true. But I mean, like, I take your point. His radio dies as well, which is unfortunate.
And his video.
Yes. Yeah. It is unfortunate that old Justin doesn't... like, what would you do, though? Just, like, throw something into it?
Just not going near it.
Not go anywhere near it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I've never seen anything like it before in my life.
Do you think if he just turned around and walked off, like, none of the rest of the events of the film would have happened?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have blown up and him putting his hand in it seemed to have led to the destruction of the Lewis and Clark.
Why is it on the ship?
It's the power of the ship, isn't it? It's the gravity engine.
But why? So they build that machine which opens a black hole, right?
Yep.
Why do they do that on the ship? Like, why put it on a ship? Why not just do it in a lab?
Because you're just dumped into the middle of Neptune and you'll die. But by the way, it's not a very efficient means of travel. Because it wouldn't take you 7 years to move. Like, he's like, oh, we want to travel anywhere and like faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
It doesn't take light 7 years to reach Neptune.
I'll be honest, Joe. I don't think disappearing for 7 years was part of the plan. Like, I don't think that was factored into it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, oh, you can get here, but it takes 7 years for you to get there.
Right.
I think that was an unfortunate part of the effect that they hadn't anticipated.
So would you say my advice to keep your hands to yourself is flawed?
I think it is sound advice, but obviously we can't change the motivations of the characters, and he is by his very nature a curious man.
Right. An intrepid explorer.
Yes. Yeah.
Fair enough. Have you got any more thoughts?
I've got one final one.
Go
I
on.
think it's a pretty sage bit of advice.
Okay.
So at the end of the film, what happens, Joe? They blow up the Event Horizon.
Yeah.
And the sort of control deck and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That gets propelled by the explosion, and that's their lifeboat, and that's the bit from which they're rescued.
Yes.
Okay, so at the end of The Shining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wendy and Danny,
Yeah.
when they leave the Overlook Hotel, they don't take a giant chunk of the haunted house with them, do they?
No.
They don't drag that all the way back to Chicago and like live in it for years and years in this haunted house.
No.
Because it's basically a haunted house in space, right?
Yeah.
So they've just taken the conservatory with them. Now,
But what's the other option? Is to just die in the vacuum of space?
yeah. Yes. Well, I mean, like, if it like is it like the demonic presence, right? It can like run riot through the ship, and then when the Lewis and Clark attaches, it can also get through the Lewis and Clark, but it can't get anywhere else because there's nothing. It's like a vacuum in space. It can't travel in a vacuum. That seems to be consistent logic, right? So by driving the demonic force to Earth, they've basically unleashed a plague upon humanity. And if we're talking about net survival, then they should have blown the whole fucking thing up.
Yeah.
That seems to be a plot hole. Basically, is that they determine, or they come to the decision that the ship is haunted, and then decide to take a giant, like a third of the haunted ship with them.
Yeah. I was going to say they destroy the gravity engine.
Yeah.
But it's actually they did a scan on the whole ship, and they're like, the ship's alive.
Yeah. And it's like and it also, you know, they're having hallucinations when they're on the Lewis and Clark and everything.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice.
Yeah,
but they do have to die.
They would all have to die. But if we're talking about net survival, and I think that's an element that they overlooked is the fact that they're dragging hell to Earth.
Yeah, well, look forward to Event Horizon 2.
Yeah,
which will probably be less good
even than this film.
It's like 24% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Is it?
Movie. Yeah.
Really? It's funny, isn't it? Because it is quite well regarded in a sort of culty way, I think.
We've had people request us to do it.
Yeah. Well, maybe 2017 is the year for Event Horizon 2. A How to Survive production.
Yep.
So thanks very much for listening. That was episode 73 of the How to Survive podcast. If you're a new listener, that means there's 72 main series episodes for you to catch up on, as well as a number of bonus episodes, which in case you neglected your podcast feed over Christmas, you might not have seen. There are a couple of little Christmas specials there. One for Home Alone 2 and one for Die Hard, which again is a film that we've been people have requested that we cover for some time. As well as last week we did Star Wars Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One, eh?
Yeah, and why are we doing Event Horizon, Joe?
Well, we like to pair our podcasts where we can. Well, this actually ends up as a trio, doesn't it? Really,
in a way, yeah.
3 space movies in a row. The third one will be Passengers.
Yes.
The Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt starring movie about some passengers on a bus.
That's right.
I think that's what happens.
Yeah, I think it's like Speed, isn't it?
Yeah, they get safely to their destination, and it's just like fine.
Everything is fine, and nobody is a creep.
Yeah. Look forward to that next week.
Yeah.
And we'll see you then, front and centre. And in the meantime,
email in at howtosurviveshow@gmail.com or tweet in at howtosurvivepod. That's the Twitter handle. Don't forget to download and subscribe. Our website is a bit more up to date nowadays.
Yeah. Oh, mate, it's got everything on it.
It's a hub.
Yeah,
it's very much a hub.
I'll tell you the new thing I put on there.
Yeah,
podcast rules.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's good. That is good. Yeah. So if you want to send in any survival suggestions, make sure you check those out before you send them in, lest we embarrass you
by naming you. We'll look up where you live and say it on air.
Yeah,
and then we'll write to your MP and have you put under house arrest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for listening. See you next week for Passengers.